Howdy, Aggs. The 2023 football season is inching closer every day, and we got to get in some previews. We got to get in quite a few previews, so let's get one going today. How about the schedule preview? This is going to be a three-part series, so like and subscribe if you haven't already. We're going to do New Mexico through Alabama, then we're going to do Tennessee through LSU, and then I'll give you my overall prediction. I got to tell you about all the teams first so you can see the inside of my brain, what's going on, what I'm thinking. That way you can understand why I'm predicting what I'm predicting. Right now, your Aggs are somewhere in the neighborhood of like a 7.5 regular season win total is what people are projecting them. Some have them up at 8.5, probably averaging 8 at this point. Can we go over? Are we going to go under again? Or is that a right on? A lot of things to consider. To figure that out, we need to know what's going on with these teams. Okay, so you want to get all that information, like and subscribe to the channel. Good on you for already doing that. Like I told you, if we got to our first mark, we're going to get a night game for August 2nd, September 2nd with New Mexico. We got it. Thank you, but thank yourself. Okay, now if we get to 1,000, remember ESPN's told me that the Bama game will feature game day, so we're going to get game day at Kyle Field if we can get to 1,000. They're being so generous. Not sure why they care about a little channel like this, but they do. So hey, do it, smash it. What do you have to lose, right? Now let's start off with New Mexico, and really let's just go ahead and lump in Louisiana Monroe and ACU. Now ACU's on the backside, so I'll hit them one more time just as a mention when we get to that second part. I'm not going to say much about these. New Mexico was 2-10 last year. I expect us to go out and just run this. And if we don't, you know how I feel. I'll talk about that more in the previews, but this should be just a solid tune-up. I'm going to say this right now: throw the playbook out that door. I don't want to hear anything about this vanilla playbook BS. Okay. We don't need, in my opinion, we don't need to be getting vanilla in this game. We need to be tuning up for the next game. That's what I want to see out of New Mexico. So, besides all the particulars for New Mexico, that's what I want to. That's what I want to do with that game, because we got Miami the next week. Second game of the year, Miami. Now, big theme for this entire preview, up and down the schedule, and you can lump us into that as well, is going to be the coordinator carousel. There are coaching changes everywhere. They're all over the place. And Miami's starting it off strong. They've got 2 new coordinators. They're getting rid of Kevin Steele and Josh Gaddis, offensive defensive coordinator. So this gets interesting right off the bat. So Kevin Steele, their defense dropped from like 20th to 65th last year, somewhere in that neighborhood. It was not great, and so they're going to move on, and Saban's going to offer that guy a job and take him on. He's moving to Alabama to be their defensive coordinator. I don't even know what to make of that. You know, I've got so many thoughts floating around in my head to think, well, why didn't it work at Miami? Is it, we're saying it's just a talent situation? If he's so good enough to work at Alabama, why couldn't he do more with them at Miami? Okay, not some of the greatest recruiting classes that they've had, I suppose, in the last few years. So like last year they did come in with the 16th class. I'm sorry, the 7th class. The year before that in 22 was the 16th class. 21, the 11th class. And 20, which is the ones that are probably going to be matching up with us the most, they were the 17th class. Okay, not terrible classes, not top 10 classes. Should he have been able to do more? You be the judge. Apparently, Saban thinks he can do more. So why didn't it work in Miami? Just going to leave this at that question. Mario Cristobal is in his second year. He hired 2 guys in his first year, and they are gone after 1 year. Rough start right there. rough start right there. So I told you about the recruiting classes. Now let's talk about what's returning and who to look out for right off the bat. Tyler Van Dyke, quarterback, returning. Had an excellent 2021 year, but regressed this last year. You've got Parrish as their running back. Solid running back, not necessarily flashy. Workhorse, going to get things done. And you've got Restrepo at wide receiver. This is a flashy guy. This guy knows his stuff. He's athletic, and he's got ability. So they got some pretty good returning production from on the offense, particularly in the skill position places. Offensive line, a little bit of a different story. They're bringing in a guy from Alabama, Cohen from Alabama. They are also hitting the transfer portal and brought in Matt Lee from UCF. You probably don't know these names, but these are guys that they think are going to shape up this offensive line. Malagoa is a highly touted incoming freshman. I want to say he was the #1 offensive tackle in the 2023 class that they're bringing in. So they think all three of these guys are going to shore up their offensive line. Maybe not. We know how that works. So that might be a bit of a stretch for them. Now we'll say this. They're like 9th in the ACC for talent returning. So not great. On defense, this is probably where their strength is, because I told you about all the offensive line replacements. Defense, they return about 77%. And that's like I said, that's a 65th ranked defense. So is that a good thing or a bad thing? You want to return a mediocre defense, or are you expecting that they're going to get better from where they were since they're going to have more experience? You know, that's an interesting question, because you know that's going to be a lot of the question that we're going to be trying to answer this year, right? Basically got a lot of the same guys returning from a 5-7 team. So are they going to take a step, or is it just the same garbage returning? That's a loaded question, isn't it? So they were 86th in total offense last year. So keep that in mind with that returning production as well. They've got a lot of work to do. They've got some new blood at the coordinator positions and a lot going on here. So Cristobal needs to really get this ship righted and needs to get it done with the quickness. So maybe that benefits us, maybe it doesn't. So that's some information. We'll talk again, I give first team, we'll talk a lot more about all these when we're going through where I think the L's and the W's are going to land and how that overall record is going to shape up. So Louisiana Monroe comes up next. Going to just jump on right past them because we need to go ahead and get into Auburn. And this is going to be the battle of the 5 and 7s. Now, you know, Auburn, not only do they have a new OC and new DC, and they got a new HC as well. So Hugh Freeze is taking over there. Quick personnel look. And the last 4 classes, they've been 8th, 19th, 21st, and 18th. And that's from 20 to 23. So we should be going up against that, 8th ranked class in large part. They've been kind of descending a little bit. They've hit the transfer portal viciously. Top 5 ranked transfer portal, right? Hugh Freeze went and just knocked this out. He went out and got a transfer in Peyton Thorne from Michigan State. A lot are talking about him winning the job. What happened last year was T.J. Finley was the starter. He gets hurt. Robbie Ashford comes in, and just kind of, I think he was somewhere actually in the 50% completion rate range. Finley had 60%, so they really took a knock there, and Finley, for whatever reason, is now transferred out and is going to Texas State. I guess, hey, new coach, maybe it's not your style, maybe they just kind of pushed him out. Who can really say? But between these two guys, Ashford and Thorne, that's who they're liking to take the job, and maybe lean to Thorne. I don't know the two guys really that well, but this is the state of where they're at with trying to figure out who's going to be the QB. So again, they got a lot of transfers in. You're talking about from teams from Ohio State, Ole Miss, LSU, Purdue, Cincy, USF, Kentucky. So transfers just flowing in. So it's going to be a brand new team. I think we lost this game 13-10 last year. 13-10. Something to talk about at this point is really kind of getting into this Auburn game, because the previous year we won, I think, 20-3. And when we got to this game, man, it was probably, I think it was our worst game of the year. Don't you? I mean, I don't even think we scored until the fourth quarter. So our offense was just dreadful last year, especially in this game. And a lot of our conversation is going to be around how much can we progress. Okay, Auburn's looking to do better, and maybe part of the narrative with this game is going to be who's got the most stability, who's the most polished at this point. And so you might, for instance, give us a lean in that area, since we've got, yes, a new coordinator, but not a whole new system, not a whole new team, and all that kind of stuff. But there are going to be some interesting dynamics to talk about on the backside to figure out whether or not I believe this is going to be a win or an L. So moving along, the replay of the Doink game, Arkansas, we hiccup 2 years ago, right? And we, I would say, let them win, right? We let them win. We were moving the ball. I don't know. Arky's not going to like that, but last year was, again, just a really struggleful effort. Is that even a word, struggleful? Let's make it one, because that's what I think about that game. Just a holistic struggle throughout, and thankfully they just couldn't slip that field goal in, or we would have been going home with another L. Now, another thing to think about on the backside, I'm going to be putting in a lot of these throughout this entire conversation, is that we had 5 games that we lost by 1 score. This was one of those where we were on the benefiting side. Now, there's that interesting dynamic. You can say, well, we had 3 games that we lost by a field goal. We lost by 4 to Alabama. And then there was, I think, one more by 6. It'll hit me in a second. But 5 games within a touchdown. Maybe we're going to put some of those as W's this next year, but should we transfer some of these close wins to losses? Interesting conversations to go on there. Either way, getting back to Arky more specifically, there's not a change to the narrative at this point. They're replacing both coordinators. Both of them are being changed. Most notably was Browse. They're going to replace him with Enos. Barry Odom is leaving as the defensive coordinator, and he went to take the head coaching job at UNLV. UNLV is where Petrino was going to be going as offensive coordinator before we grabbed him. So a lot of interesting connections going on with all this as well. But Browse is probably the bigger thing to talk about. So, kind of in a contract renegotiation kind of situation, it looked like, from what I've read. And him and his agent might have put out there something like $2 million, is what they're looking for. And the way it was described that I heard was hit the highway kind of situation. Thanks, but no thanks. Not just like, well, would you take 1.6? Or, wow, do you really think, maybe that, $2 million is what you're worth there? Sounds like they overshot almost on purpose. And so now he moves himself over to TCU. Did he get $2 million at TCU? I don't know. But Arkansas, they weren't fighting for him, that's for sure. So seems like we had something that was going on in the background. I think Pittman's going to be going into his 4th year now. People talk about Jimbo in his 5th year, going in his 6th. You're kind of thinking, well, you hit that first year running, second year you get a little bit more success, you kind of get complacent in your 3rd and 4th year a little bit. Maybe that's what they're kind of saying about Jimbo. or have at least alluded to it. So I don't know, but it seemed like something else was going on. Player-wise, they're going to return KJ Jefferson at quarterback. They're going to return Rocket Sanders at running back. What they need to figure out is the wide receiver room. They don't have a Treylon Burks from 2 years ago, which is, again, the large part, him and Bumper Pool, the main reasons why we lost that game. It's not clear who's going to be stepping up to catch those passes, especially the deep ones that continue to light us up when we lost, like Treylon Burks. So who that's going to be, like I said, it is really unclear now. And to top it off, they've got offensive line concerns, in my opinion. Not sure what they would say. Now, you listen to any radio show in Arkansas, and I guarantee you, and they're talking about getting back to the SEC championship game. And I say getting back to for a reason, because you know how funny that is, those of you listening that are not Arkansas natives but have moved there. That's a conversation every year. And it's funny to think about getting back. Not even sure if they've ever been there, but that's just the mindset and how they put that out there. Go hang around Fayetteville and see if it's not. So they lose last year to Liberty, right? Liberty. Let me say it one more time. Liberty beats them. Who's that? Who's Liberty? Well, you probably know them. That's where Hugh Freeze coached last year. So he's coming into Auburn. He's leaving Liberty. He's gone out and beat Arkansas for his trouble, for their trouble, really. And here we are. Interesting how all this ends up playing out. Defense is most notably, they're going to be losing Bumper Pool, or have lost him, but they're going to replace him with Chris Paul Jr. You'll know his name as the season goes on, and I'm certain you'll get to know him by the time that game gets here. I'll talk about him a lot more. He probably replaced Bumper Pool and then some. That's my thought. But what can they do on defense? We kind of struggled a little bit last year. You know, we got that weird return fumble recovery on the 2-yard line, which was, you know, that's just, you don't count on that kind of stuff to repeat. So where's this gonna be at by the time we get there? I'll get into more of those dynamics again when we get to the full-on prediction. Now, ESPN's got us as a 62% favorite, and there's no line currently. So after we play Auburn, and really after we play Miami, I'll have a little bit more of a certain position on this one. But I will tell you, this game is always, y'all know this is always a grudge match game. Every single year is a grudge match game. So it's almost like a rivalry game, and no matter what you think the prediction should be, they play us tough, and it's played out that way every year. Even the year they beat us, we were driving. I think we lost 20-10 that year, and it's still a close game. It's still not a blowout. I think that maybe one game's been like that in the entire series. So. Yeah, like I said, they went 7-6 last year. They're wanting to right that ship, and they're going to need a win here. But we're looking to do the same thing, and a lot's going to come down to my prediction as to where I think the strength's going to lie for both these teams. So hopefully, game day matchup, Bama. Okay, so Bama's coming in. We get them at home this year. We are currently a 6.5-point dog, which is a little bit odd. I went and looked back. I think there's only been one time in the last 12 years that we've had a line lower than that or close to that. Otherwise, it's been like 17, 18 points the entire time. So that concerns me a little bit. A couple reasons. They could use that as fodder. That's bulletin board material. I think Saban eats that kind of stuff up. What? He's going to tell them that they're sleeping on them because they should be much heavier favorite, right? Well, maybe he doesn't have that in his purview going on right now, but he's a seasoned guy, so he can definitely take on a lot. But here's the reality going into this game right now, and it's complicated. They've got the same situation as everybody else at this point. They're replacing offense and the defensive coordinator. Okay, so I already told you that Kevin Steele is coming over, and so Saban's going to make this guy into a world beater apparently, and good on him. He's just the guy to do it, right? I don't know. Coupled with that, he's onboarding Tommy Rees from Notre Dame as his offensive coordinator. Bill O'Reilly leaves to go take on the Patriots job. I think OC there is what it is. So that was never a great thought by Alabama fans. I don't think they liked either one of these guys. But you know what? They were third in defense last year in total defense, and I want to say like top 20 in offense. You know, kind of crazy if you think about it. But you know, they recruit well every year. The other interesting narrative on this is like they're like one of the I think they're dead last in the SEC for returning production. It's like 43% on offense and probably an all-time low of 38 on defense. I mean, when you talk about reloading, if there was ever a reload year, this is a reload year. It's not like you're replacing like 4 or 5 guys, maybe 6. I mean, they're replacing like 7, 8 guys on both sides of the ball here. That is a true reload. If anybody can do it, it's them. And there's very few teams that you would say that about, right? Like them, Georgia, maybe Ohio State. But they are going to have to do it if they're going to have that success. It gets more complicated because they've got like this weird 4-horse situation for quarterback. And I'll toss out a few of those real quick. You probably know a few. They just recruited Eli Holstein. Remember, he was committed to us for quite a long time before he decommitted. Commits to Alabama. Watched the spring game, and he looks like the part. Does he look like the part enough to win for this year? I don't know. Probably not, considering some of the other guys. But they bring in Buckner, I believe Tyler Buckner from Notre Dame. So because they're bringing him in, the thought is that he's going to start. And he's going to have to start over Jalen Milroe and Ty Simpson. Can he do that? I don't know. I don't think they're too high on Jalen Milroe right now. I think he's had some issues with the playbook. He just hasn't looked very competent in his work. Ty Simpson behind him, though, probably the neck-and-neck favorite with Buckner, I think is fair. If Alabama fans are watching this and you think differently of that, let us know. But that's probably where they're sitting right now. They got a big question to answer, and no one really knows how to answer that question. I mean, they're just kind of throwing darts in the dark at this point, to be quite honest. If you listen to a bunch of them talk, they don't really know who it's going to be. So Rees has got his work cut out for him right off the bat. He'll need to figure that one out ASAP. Running back, you know, they got Jace McClellan and this guy Justice Haynes. I watched in the spring game, and that guy, he's new, but he'll be a force to reckon with, and I'm sure he'll get some carries. But they'll be fine at running back. Not really worried about that. Offensive line is probably their bigger question. Not a typical strength for them, and we tore them up quite a bit in our game. And that was, I think, McKinley Jackson's first game back, and we did a solid job on them. So we hopefully we can do that same thing. I think the key to this game is going to be getting pressure. This one and the next game coming up as well. But Tennessee's going to come up next, and we'll get into more of that. But for this game, new quarterback, it's going to be our 6th game of the year. It'll probably end up being a lot about where the rosters are at the time. Have they got their quarterback actually solidified, or have they had to go away from that? And that might play into how our matchup works with them. So another interesting thought. So their defensive coordinator, Pete Golding, and again, this carousel just winds around and it comes all the way back. Pete Golding, he's going to head on over to Ole Miss. Their defensive coordinator, I think the last 2-3 years, they've not been high on this guy despite the production that he's done, and it's been good. So why is he leaving? And you know, the speculators and prognosticators are out there, and they think him and Saban just, I think, knock heads is what it is. So he's going to leave to go to Ole Miss. Some people are spinning as Ole Miss outbid them. That can't be true, right? So there's something going on here too. It seems like the way a lot of these are playing out is I read some of these things in these articles. It's not that they're covering for something. It's just they don't want to quite name it. They don't want to name that there's a problem. And people over at Georgia have tried to spin, well, he's leaving because he sees that, you know, it's the end of the road for Alabama. I'm not going to buy that one either. But I don't think that he probably got to do things the way that he wanted to do them. And so he's going to go over to Ole Miss. Lane Kiffin's going to let him basically do what he wants to do there. But that'll play into the second half because that's who we're going to be up against Ole Miss. And, of course, they'll have a offensive coordinator change as well. So I don't know. Where will they be with their quarterback? That's probably the biggest question. And when you are going to match up with our defensive line and their offensive line and vice versa, will ours actually be able to perform like we're expecting our offensive line to perform? A lot of that has to do with how solidified these rosters are. Yes, we're bringing back a lot, but we do have some key parts. And our offensive line, even though it's technically all 5 returning, they, as a unit, they're still going to be new. So that's a large position. You know, nearly half of the offense that's going to have to be doing their thing in the right way come this game. So I will expound on that more when I tell you about whether or not I think that this is going to be a win or a loss for your Aggies. So if you haven't, again, hit that like and subscribe button so you can get back here for the second part and for the final predictions. All right, we'll catch you then. Gig 'em.